Hello and welcome. Today we're working on what is compound interest. I'm going to explain compound interest for beginners. Hello, my name's Jeff from Finally Learn, where I teach financial literacy. Now, to understand compound interest, let's give an example of simple interest first. Now, here's the formula for simple interest is principal times rate times time, or I equals PRT. But let me show you what would happen if we invested $10,000 for 5 years at 8% interest. Then we would take the $10,000 times the 8% and we'd get $800. Now, year 2, we would do the same $10,000 times the same 8% and we'd get the same $800. So what happens on simple interest is it is interest on the principal amount only. We don't consider that we've earned $800. We only look at the original $10,000. So to finish this up for the 5 years, we're going to say $10,000 for each year, 8% for each year, and then what is the interest each year? Well, 10,000 times 8% is always going to be $800. So what's our total interest? Well, our total interest is $4,000. So at the end of 5 years, how much would you have? Well, you'd have the original $10,000 plus the interest of $4,000. You'd have $14,000. So if you want to use the formula, you would say principal of $10,000 times the rate of 8%. Remember, the 8% is 0.08 as a decimal. Times 5 years, you get $4,000. And so that's $800 every year is interest. So now let's explain the difference between this simple interest and compound interest. Well, we start with the same information except we say we want compound interest rather than simple interest. Here is the compound formula for future value. We're not going to use that. I've got other videos for that, so check in the description below. But let's just say we have $10,000 times 8%. The first year, simple interest is the same with compound interest. So 10,000 times 8% is going to give us the $800. But here's the difference between simple interest and compound interest. Compound interest is interest on principal and interest, and interest, and interest. So it just keeps adding. So here we're going to take the 10,000 plus this $800. We'll multiply that times 8%. So 10,800 times 8%, and now we have 864. Where did that extra $64 come from? Well, it's 8% on top of the 800. That's $64. So what we're going to do every time is we're going to take the preceding number, add the interest. So now the balance goes to $11,664. We can do the same thing all the way down, times the 8%. So 11,664 times 8%. So you see our interest is growing and we want this. So I'm just going to copy this down because I'm using Excel. We can do this faster. You see the pattern. So what is our total interest? Our total interest is now $4,693. What is our total future value? Or what's the account value at the end of the 5 years? It's going to be the 10,000 plus the 4693. So instead of being 14,000, it's 14,693. Under simple interest, we earn $4,000. Under compound interest, we earn 4,693. So compound interest pays more when you have the same interest rate versus simple interest. So let's look at a chart. What if we took this same $10,000 and it grew at 8% for many, many years? What if it grew for 30 years? Well, remember we saw the pattern for simple interest. It's $800 each year for 30 years. So how much interest would you earn? Well, it would be $800 times 30 years would be something like 24,000. So your original 10,000 plus 24,000, you'd have 34,000. You might be happy with that. You're like, well, I started with 10, now I have 34,000. Until you start figuring out compound interest is exponential growth. Think about this. If you had 100,000, it grows over that period of time. The curve is exponential growth, but at 8%, how much would you earn if you had 100,000? Well, 100,000 times 8% is $8,000, and you're still making 800 if you had simple interest. So compound interest is the way to go. You want to know compound interest. If you're an investor, compound interest is your friend.